Hello everyone, Cousteau here with Cousteau Christopher VFX. Today we have a very special tutorial on making CG blood splatter with Realflow. Let's get started. So as you can see on the side here, basically the things that we have here are a circle emitter, a gravity daemon, two noise fields, a plane, and a kill volume, and I'll explain which each one is going to be used for. So, obviously our circle emitter, this is going to be the emitter for our blood, and then we go on to gravity. Gravity, pretty self-explanatory. This is going to be what makes the blood realistic and hitting the plane. Alright, so then I'm going to jump down to kill volume. Basically this is so if there's any excess particles that happen to bounce off or fly out, do some glitchy thing, it's not going to fly away forever. It's going to be contained inside this box, and once it hits the wall, it'll disappear. Then right here we have a plane, and this is going to be the surface that our blood will splatter upon. So now we have our two noise fields, and if you notice right here, I have my circle emitter within both of these two noise fields. So basically, we have gravity, just explain that. Going to keep that as it is. Kill volume, basically put it around the blood splatter where it's going to be. And then we have our two noise fields. And what I usually like to do with these is for the first noise field is I like to give both of them a very large strength value. And for the first one, I'm going to give it a smaller space value. So what the space scale does is it gives a certain distortion and more of like a ripple effect to your fluid, whatever fluid it may be. So with a smaller space scale, it will give a larger ripple effect. And like you see here in noise field number 2, if you have a larger space scale, that's going to make the ripples more condensed and smaller and give it the distortion needed for the blood splatter. So with noise field 1, I'm also going to turn down the time scale a little so that the larger distortion ripples are going to act a little bit slower than as we see here in noise field number 2, which the space scale is larger, so it's going to be more condensed ripples, and the time scale is also going to be a little bit faster. So this means basically that it's going to add a little bit of detail, and it's going to give us, those little specks of blood and those kind of things. Alright, so now that we've gotten that down, here we have our plane, and this part's very, very important for the blood splatter process. So if we go under the particle fluid interaction tab, right here, as you can see, we have collision tolerance and all of these right here. So what we want to be messing with is these 4 right here, from particle friction down to roughness. So with particle friction, we're going to want to turn this up, I would say quite a bit. I have mine at 0.5, and basically this is just going to give it, more of that stick that you need for the blood to stick to the surface. So also the bounce, going to turn that down a little, so basically our particles aren't going to bounce off all crazy and do all kinds of weird things. Alright, and then with the sticky value, well, I guess that's pretty self-explanatory. I turned that up a bunch. And also for roughness, I turned that up because, well, in order for friction, you need a rough surface, and that will give you more friction. So I turned that up quite a bit too, to like around 0.5. Alright, and then if we go over to our emitter, usually what I like to do is I like to have my resolution for the emitter around, say, 30. Anywhere between 20 and 40 is usually good. With my density, I have it at 400 right now, but usually somewhere in between 300 and 600 also works. For interior pressure, I like to put it at 0.1. And for the viscosity for this blood splatter, I just put it at 12, surface tension at 2, and this is very important right here. Interpolation. So basically what this does is when you move when you raise the resolution value, you're going to need to put this to local or global, but I like local. And this is basically so your simulation doesn't mess up and screw up during the simulation process. Alright, and then max particles, I have a slightly I slightly enlarged the emitter, so I put around 80,000 just so it's going to be a little bit more detailed. Alright, and if we go from particles down to the circle tab, here we can see the speed. I put this at, around 20, so it has that velocity of that and makes that splat that you really like to see with the blood splatter. And V and H random. So basically what V and H random means is that the particles are going to move randomly on the vertical and horizontal axes, and this just gives it a little bit more of those little speckles of blood. And once we get all of that done, you probably want to put your circle emitter at a bit of an angle. You never want it to be pointed straight down. You always want it to be a little bit of an angle towards the surface that you're trying to splatter on. And if you do it straight down, it just doesn't really give you that effect that you really want. So if you put it at an angle, this is basically something, it's going to look something like this. Alright, so yeah, that's basically just about it towards simulating a really nice blood splatter. So the next step in this process, of course, is, making the mesh. So here we're going to go down to particle mesh, add one of these. And then once you get here, what I like to do is I like to put the polygon size to around 0.3, but in this case I'm just going to do 0.25. This is going to give you a smoother mesh. For the smooth property, I'm probably going to turn this down to around 15, just because it doesn't try to smooth out the edges as much, and sometimes with the smoothing property it can create little choppy effects between, for instance, say right here and right here, it might have a little chop weirdness in between. Okay, and then after we do that, I like to go down to circle, and then we go down to field. And basically, it sees every one of these particles, and it says, alright, I'm going to make the radius of this, well, 0.8 is kind of big, and it's going to look really blobby, and that's not really what you want. So I like to turn this also down to around 0.2025, excuse me. And that usually gives you the mesh that you're looking for. And if we go right here, click, and right click and build, this is what we're going to get, and it looks pretty good. So now you just have to import that into 3ds Max like I showed in the previous tutorial, and then you can start messing with your blood. So I hope you learned something from this tutorial. If you still have a question or want me to be more specific about something, feel free to tell me in the comments section and I'll respond to you as soon as I can. Also, don't forget to check out my new website, CousteauChristopherVFX.com, for low-priced VFX stock footage like what we went over today. If you have a friend interested in VFX and film, tell them about Cousteau Christopher VFX. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Have a great rest of your day.